What makes one pinball machine great and another mediocre? More pertinently, why would a pinball machine that has exactly the same layout as another and possibly even the same game designer be that much better? I don't know the answer, but I feel I've got there a little more recently. It's something I first became aware of because I prefer Attack from Mars to Medieval Madness. Not just a little bit, a lot. And I was often asked by people why. It's the same layout, it's the same designer. Inherently, it's the same pinball machine. Why would you really like one? And B, I don't dislike Medieval Madness, but maybe ambivalent towards another. And I think I tried to explain myself in terms of maybe preferring aliens to castles or something like that. We can get into the fine detail of that particular comparison either later on this video or another time. But it was quite clear. I did prefer one. I'll add in another one as well. Stranger Things. I don't particularly enjoy Stranger Things, but there are differences. I never felt, even though the shots were more or less the same, I always felt the games were quite different. I find, for instance, Stranger Things very fast, a lot faster than Medieval Madness. Medieval Madness I find to be quite a slow game. Not that that's a problem. In many respects for me, Stranger Things is too fast. But I can't ever remember playing those games and thinking, I'm playing the same game. And I've been lucky enough to have all three games here. But I started to think about it more recently due to Jersey Jack's release of their Elton John pinball machine, which of course been designed by Steve Ritchie. And the reason I thought about that was, I think it's fair to say that that pinball machine received a mixed response. And a lot of the accusations were that there was nothing new to see here. We've seen nothing new, what people were saying. We've seen this from Steve Ritchie before. In many respects, people were asking, what's the point? What's the point? Now, there was one particular post on a thread on Pinside that I found really interesting and got me thinking. So it was on the Elton John thread, and I think there are a lot of people just trying to follow the release of the game. Not everybody could make it to the Chicago Expo, like myself. So there were many of us refreshing the browser on our internet. There were many of us looking for videos. And you had the reveal from Jersey Jack, which it was a good promotional video, don't get me wrong, but it showed a little bit of the gameplay, but not an awful lot. I think then they had the machines were available to play at the Expo. So, of course, you had people's opinions of the game having played it. And, of course, everybody was there with their mobile phones, so people were recording the game with their phones. And I think when you aggregate all of that information together, there was enough information there for people to see what the game was going to look like, although you never truly know until you've played a game over a period of time. But there was enough initial information that some people had made up their minds. And when I say made up their minds, people had made up their minds that they wanted the game, and some people had made up their minds that they didn't want the game. Actually, not only had they made up their minds that they didn't want the game, they had made up their minds that they didn't want other people that they didn't even know to get the game. And there was one post I found very interesting. So one of the posters on Pinside had decided that he was going to take the plunge. He was going to buy himself an Elton John pinball machine from Jersey Jack. And there was a reply to his post which went along the lines of, don't bother. Don't buy it. What I suggest you do is go and buy yourself a Star Trek The Next Generation, which of course also was designed by Steve Ritchie, and save yourself loads of money. And as immediately as I read it, I disagreed. I didn't write a reply, and I just in my mind, I disagreed. I thought, no, it's not the same. For the same reason that maybe that same person could possibly give me the advice, that same advice with Attack from Mars and Medieval Madness. But it's not just that, is it? There are so many other games. One of my favourites, probably can't see it, end of the screen there, Batman66. The shots are the Dark Knight, are they not? George Gomez again. But it's not the same. I mean, the Dark Knight is, in my opinion at least, and pinball, a lot of pinball is about opinions, the Dark Knight is nowhere near as good as Batman 66. I'm going to get into why I think that is in just a second, but when I was on the UK version of Pinside, which is called Pinball Info, there was a great poster on there by the name of V, and very nice person, V. I've met V before, and she was discussing the same thing about Attack from Mars and about Stranger Things, and of course about Medieval Madness, and it got me thinking, what else is there? And then what makes the difference? So you'd have to excuse me, a quick pit stop. I'll just change my glasses because I'll be reading from the screen just behind the camera there. So I asked people for suggestions because I've not really been in this hobby in terms of pinball ownership. Well, I only got into the hobby in 2018, so there are many people who know far more about pinball than I do. So, of course, I called on their expertise. And a lot of suggestions came in. There were a lot of people explaining what game was similar to another. So Collie Wobbles, my friend Colin, said Guardians of the Galaxy is very much like Metallica in almost every way. And now that's interesting. I've never had either a Guardians of the Galaxy or a Metallica here, and I don't think I've played any more than 2 or 3 games on either machine. But I've seen the layout. I know I've seen the layout, and it is very, very similar. But by this guy's rationale on Pinside, surely everybody that likes Guardians of the Galaxy will like Metallica, right? Well, of course, that's not going to be the case, because even just the theme alone may be different. Maybe you really love Marvel stuff and you don't like heavy metal, in which case you're going to like Guardians of the Galaxy, and I guess not like Metallica. Some interesting ones. Sergeant Grizz said Lethal Weapon 3 is very similar to T2. He mentioned that Tommy is like a mirrored The Addams Family. So I guess The Addams Family, but in reverse. Now, I'm not saying he's not wrong. He may well be right. But, of course, there's other things, isn't there? I mean, there'll be reasons why you like The Addams Family. I mean, Tommy's got the shield that comes over and covers the flippers. So I think there are a number of things that make machines different. So once again, I'm not sure how true the guy on Pinside's comments were. And I'm not sure. I think he was giving advice, and I think he intended it, but I wasn't sure it was the best advice. I don't think it's the right advice. In the same way that I know they are inherently the same machines, and we're going back to the Elton John Star Trek Next Generation one here. You have Star Trek from Stern, and also you have Spider-Man from Stern. Is it more or less the same thing? Well, I guess if you took all of the artwork, and this is the thing, all of the artwork, all of the sound, and the code, and stripped them away, and you just had a plain black and white playfield, they probably would look the same. But that's the key, isn't it? They do have different art packages, they do have different themes, they do have different sound, they do have different lights, they do have different codes, and as a result of which, some are going to be easier to understand than others. You don't have to know anything. I say this about Attack from Mars all the time. You don't have to know anything about the game itself before you start playing it. It's very, very simple. I think by the time you've put your first coin in, if you play it on location, and the first time I played Attack from Mars was on location, by the time you've put a couple of coins in, had a couple of games, you understand, even if all you've done is perhaps destroyed Italy and Germany and destroyed the saucer over Italy and Germany, you still know what you've got to do for the rest of it, because the inserts let you know, because the theme lets you know, the call-outs let you know, the sound lets you know. Everything about that game is telling you what to do. I don't think it's quite the same in Stranger Things, actually. I really don't. I think it's not quite so evident. Don't get me wrong. When the flap lifts down and you know you've got to hit the demi-dog, the demi-vagina or whatever it is, and you've got to whack the ball up into there, it's quite obvious that it's a target. But I mean in the overall rules and the overall structure of the game, it's not the same. I would even suggest you probably need to have some form of knowledge about Stranger Things. Maybe you've even watched the series on Netflix, would be some sort of assistance to play in that game. Asia Pinball said Baywatch and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, I don't know why I find that so hard to say, are similar. And this is really interesting. Monkey Boy Paul said Tron and Congo. Now, I didn't know this. Now, I've been lucky enough to have 2 Congos here. I've had Congo twice, and neither. And I regret it. I really wish I still had a Congo. I love that game, but I haven't really played Tron. I've heard people speak about Tron. and I always understood it because Tron was spoken about as a tough game and a hard game. Well, I've never found Congo to be particularly hard. Congo's quite an easy game. I love it. Very, very good game. And as I understand it, I think Tron was designed by John Borg. I'm not sure Congo was. So I didn't know that. I mean, that was really good news. I was really pleased that Monkey Boy Paul said that, because it's now made me want to go and try and play Tron, because Congo's quite a rare game. I think they made less than 2,000. Unlikely to get another Congo, but maybe I'll be able to get a Tron, which I'd certainly like to do at some point in the future. David said, Whirlwind, the Addams Family, Data East, Jurassic Park are all extremely similar. Davey said Shrek and Family Guy are the same. And then Stern, Indiana Jones and Aerosmith. Now, I mean, Aerosmith's a funny one because I've had an Aerosmith, I've had a Rush here. He certainly does. John Borg likes a shot through the pop bumpers, doesn't he? But as I remember it, Rush had a similar layout to X-Men. But does that mean you like both? I'm not so sure. And Monkey Boy Paul said Twilight Zone and Iron Maiden. Alpha One says playing Sopranos loads at the moment. Reminds me of Deadpool. Now, I get that. I can understand that. There are some similar shots on it. He said the outer loops and the gates appear to be in exactly the same place. I mean, George Gomez as well. V, who was the one that probably prompted this video, said Beatles is a tweaked copy of Sea Witch. Stern, NBA and Space Jam, says Dogard. And Chris, who's Fantasia 2, says Primus and Wernelli. I don't know, in all honesty. And my friend Matt Vince says definitely looking to Trongo. I understand what he's done there. He's done Tron and Congo. I don't know why I didn't know this. I've been in 5 years now in the hobby and no one's ever said this to me before. And this is really interesting because this is Phil, this is Big Phil, who runs Pinfest over here in the UK. What he's going to say here, I'm completely aligned with. He said, I honestly don't see a problem with layouts being the same. Like what Spooky did with Halloween and Ultraman. That's a fantastic layout. Fantastic layout, multiple themes, will save cost on designs. I'd have Ferris Bueller. He said someone else would have My Little Pony, another would choose Gummy Bears. What he's saying is, if it's a fantastic layout, you would put your own theme on there. I'm exactly the same. But it does, I think, feed into the point of what makes the difference. Why would you prefer one than the other? Why is one so much better than the other? Because I do think that can happen, as I've explained in the case of Batman66. Well, and I'll just read a few more of these posts out in a second. I think for me with Batman66, number one, the look of the game. It's gorgeous. The Dark Knight, it's a bit dark, right? But I mean, the crane is still there. The shots are inherently the same. I think the way the code works and the multipliers really work well for me. I love the theme. I love Batman. There's something really iconic. When I say Batman, I like the old series of Batman, the Adam West one. There's something iconic about it. Batman. I love it. I love it. There's a nostalgia there. So immediately the hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I'm already more attached to that machine than the Dark Knight. Which, don't get me wrong, they were fine. Christian Bale, he was an okay Batman, right? These were decent enough films. But it's not nostalgic, and it's not a beautiful work of art. Batman66 is a work of art as a pinball machine. I don't know. I don't actually know. Maybe I should have looked. I don't know if Lyman Sheets was on the code for the Dark Knight. Don't know at all. Certainly was on there, and it is brilliant. But also, I think I like the way that that Gomez designs a game. Anyway, as I've mentioned on numerous occasions, he's my favourite designer. But there is something, and it probably is the theme, it probably is the call-out, it probably is the sound, it probably is the art package that lifts that, and the code that lifts that above the Dark Knight. So what is the difference? I think it's that. I think I've just explained it. I think it is the music, is the call-outs, is the code, is the art package, it's all that stuff, and is that theme. Does that theme resonate with you? And that's what makes one pinball machine better than the other. For me, there are slight different things. I said I'd go back to Attack from Mars and Medieval Madness. I will. I don't really like the trolls. I feel there's more skill involved in hitting the aliens on the side that jump up. I don't know what it is. It just feels that way for me. I also feel the way that the ball pops out of the scoop, it's a lot more direct. It's faster. There's more precision to Attack from Mars. Very, very small differences. I don't like the way, for instance, what's the equivalent of the scoop is the saucer in Medieval Madness, sort of dribbles out the back. Now, don't get me wrong, on the ramp on Medieval Madness, you've got a diverter, haven't you? So there's probably a little bit more shots on there. I don't particularly like the catapult on Medieval Madness. And there's just something, I just feel that maybe it's the scoring, certainly. It was once my friend Craig pointed out the scoring to me as well. The wider scoring was different on Medieval Madness to Attack from Mars. I hadn't really thought of it that much myself. I thought, okay, this is another reason why I'm understanding one game more than the other. So I do think there's multiple reasons. Let me just read out a few more here. M4 Kype said Gottlieb's Sinbad and Robo War. Oh, I wouldn't know. That's Dave. And Sean said, who's Arv on the floor on The Walking Dead, is basically Austin Powers. Is it really? I mean, that would be a great test, wouldn't it? I hate The Walking Dead. I cannot stand it. Not because of the theme. I love the theme. I just find it's just so hard. It's so brutal. It's so hard. I don't like it. I wonder if I'd like Austin Powers. I've never, ever played it. And Pete, who's a Moonraker, I mean, he's mentioned an awful lot here. I mean, he's talking about he said special mentions to Circus Voltaire, World Cup Soccer, 1500. I'm not great with the abbreviations. This is the other thing. I know AFM is Attack from Mars. MM is Medieval Madness. MB's got to be Monster Bash. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of abbreviations. I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. I'm good. I'm good with my. I used to be a plumber. I'm good with my plumbing abbreviations. Not so great with the pinball one. So yeah, sorry about that, Pete. A few more from Arv. Blackout Warlock, Black Hole Eclipse, Sharp Shooter, Old Coney Island. Don't know that one. 8 Ball Deluxe, Sharky Shootout, Tron Congo and Funhouse, Metallica Monster Bash. Would that be right, Metallica Monster Bash? Whirlwind Jurassic Park Data East, Kiss Harley Davidson. I mean, I love Monster Bash. I mean, if that is true, and I can't picture, I can't picture it. I cannot picture Metallica that well at all. I mean, that would be interesting. Something that had the same layout as Monster Bash that wasn't Monster Bash. Would I enjoy it as much as Monster Bash? I don't know. I mean, the theme is so good on that. Again, you don't have to read the rule set to learn Monster Bash. The game will guide you through. The rules will guide you through. The theme will guide you through. When the game tells you in Monster Bash that you've got to hit Dracula, you're in no doubt where Dracula is. The game is telling you. I think sometimes on games it will tell you to hit a certain thing. You think, well, where am I looking? But I think that's very much, possibly more of a modern thing when more and more toys have been stripped out of a game. I think they were really, really good markers. Frankenstein's monster, you know exactly where he is on Monster Bash, don't you? Lots and lots of stuff. I've got to say, this is from Marvello. He said, Elvira's House of Horrors Premium Edition, Elvira's House of Horrors Limited Edition, Elvira's House of Horrors Signature Edition, Elvira's House of Horrors 40th Edition, Elvira's House of Horrors Blood Rest Kiss Edition. They're all the same. I think he's making a really good point there. I do wonder how many more Elvira's Stern are going to release there. And I just would like to probably finish on this in terms of the comments. This is from the same. This is from Marv, basically, and he said, theme, art, and code can completely transform a pin regardless of layout. I totally agree. I would just add sound to that as well. And I think that's where I stand on it. That's absolutely where I stand. And it's just been so nice to read so many of these comments, and Steve Brum, which is Steve Paget, who is, he knows more about pinball machines than the rest of us have forgotten. He said Flash and 90% of Steve Ritchie games afterwards, and I don't disbelieve him. I don't know. I can't picture Flash in my mind. But going back again to that initial comment on Pinside, if that were true, then maybe, just maybe, nobody would ever need to buy another Steve Ritchie pin after Flash. And wouldn't that be a shame? Because we'd have missed out on everything. So I would just suggest with this one, what goes to make a great pin? It's the full package. I'm not telling you anything you haven't known there. But what makes a good pin so much better than an average pin if you've got the same layout? It's all that other good stuff. It's all the sprinkles. It's everything that's put on top. And I'll just go back to that little bit of advice that was given on Pinside from the person that wanted to buy Elton John. And he was told, don't buy Elton John. What you want to buy is Star Trek Next Generation. It might not be the best advice in the world. You might not even like Star Trek. I love Star Trek. I've had Star Trek Next Generation. Great game. But maybe, just maybe, what you like is Elton John. You like the razzmatazz. You like the sparkles. You like the glitz and glamour. Nobody does bling and nobody does eye candy quite like Jersey Jack Pinball. Maybe you want the full immersive experience of it. And if you want to do that, then by all means, go and buy yourself an Elton John.